Starting off, the very first fighting style is called Combat, and all of you have had this fighting style if you've played the game, because it's literally the default fighting style you get when you first start playing the game. And this fighting style is the only fighting style in the game that consists of only 2 abilities. The very first one is the Quick Tackle ability, which you get instantly with the 1 mastery, where you basically just dash straight into your enemy and you deal a little bit of damage to them. The second one is the Ground Smash ability, where you smash straight into the ground and deal damage to pretty much everything around you. The good things about this ability is that it's really easy to use, you give slight knockback to your opponents, and it also has decent combo potential, but the worst thing is that it's definitely the worst fighting style in the game. It literally has the lowest damage, and pretty much any fighting style that you actually buy in the game is just a lot better with abilities and damage. Moving on to fighting styles that you do buy. First, we got the Dark Step fighting style. This fighting style is the cheapest fighting style in the game, and you unlock it in the first sea at the Pirate Village, and you can get it by talking to this NPC called the Dark Step Teacher. And once you talk to him, you can buy this fighting style from him for a total of 150,000 belly. And moving on to the fighting style itself, this one is kind of unique because you actually use your feet for this. With most other fighting styles in the game, you actually use your hands. But basically, this is what the M1 looks like. Then we got the Z ability, which has a 1 master requirement where you can just launch yourself into wherever you're aiming, and it deals a decent amount of damage, and you can see exactly where you're gonna land because of this huge red thing that pops up. Then we got the X ability, which is called Breakdance, where you literally just start breakdancing and you deal damage to pretty much everything around you. Then we got the C ability with the 80 master requirement, which is called Barrage, and this ability is kind of risky because someone can literally attack you from behind while you're using it. This ability usually works better in 1v1s, and you basically just start kicking the crap out of whatever is in front of you. Then we got the transformation for this ability, which is called Overheat. And another thing that makes this fighting style pretty unique, besides the fact that you literally use your legs, is that most fighting styles in the game actually don't even have a V ability, and usually the V ability means that it's a transformation. So most fighting styles in the game actually don't have a transformation. This transformation is called Overheat with a 150 master requirement, where you just spin around and set your legs on fire, which gives you a damage buff of 22%, and it lasts for a total of 60 seconds. So basically any other ability that you use while your legs are on fire, you deal a little bit more damage with them. The good things about this ability is that it's literally very cheap. You can literally get it for pretty much nothing. But the bad thing is that since it is the cheapest fighting style in the game, it's actually probably one of the worst. It isn't really the worst because the combat fighting style exists, but this one is probably the second worst right after that. Moving on to the next fighting style in the game, this one is called the Electric fighting style. And you can also get this one in the first sea from an NPC called the Mad Scientist, who is located behind this huge rocket Skylands. You can buy the fighting style from him for a total of 500,000 belly. This is what the M1 for the ability looks like, pretty decent. Then we got the Z ability, which is called Stomp, where you just jump straight into the air and you just crash back down with a bunch of electricity around you. Then we got the X ability with the 100 master requirement called Electric Tackle, where you just dash straight forward to wherever your cursor is pointing and you deal a decent amount of damage to whatever you dash into. Then we got the C ability, which is called Electric Floor, where you literally just pour out a bunch of electricity in front of you, and this actually freezes whoever you catch in, and so they literally cannot move while you're stunning them. The good things about this ability is that it has a pretty decent click speed. It's also a pretty good choice for beginners, and honestly it's a good balance between cost and value. One bad thing about this fighting style is that you actually cannot deal any damage to rubber users with this, because if you care about the science behind it, basically rubber does not conduct electricity, so the devs decided to implement that with the game by just making the rubber fruit invincible against this fighting style. Anyways, moving on to the next fighting style, this one is called Water Kung Fu, and the place that you can get this fighting style is at this hidden wall at the underwater city and talking to the Water Kung Fu teacher, and then you can buy it for a total of 150,000 belly. This is what the normal M1 for the ability looks like. This is what the Z ability looks like with the 70 master requirement, where you just shoot forward a huge water pulse. Then we got the X ability called Deadly Shower with the 130 master requirement, where you just shoot out a bunch of water blasts towards wherever you're aiming. Then we got the C ability called Heavy Water Punch with a 250 master requirement. With this one, you basically lunge forward in the direction where your cursor is facing and you deal a good amount of damage as well as knockback to whatever you hit. The best thing about this ability is that it actually has no end lag. Most fighting styles in the game basically have a pause between every third click with the ability, but this fighting style actually does not have it, which kind of makes this like one of the best fighting styles for grinding in the whole game, even though it's a first sea fighting style, which is pretty crazy. But since it's really good for grinding, I don't really recommend this for PvP because it doesn't really have that crazy of combo potential. You also need crazy prediction skills because most of the abilities are aim based, but I definitely recommend it for grinding. Now we're moving on to the big leagues, the fighting styles in the second sea. The very first one that we got here is the Dragon's Breath fighting style. This is the first fighting style in the game that actually costs fragments instead of belly. And the place that you can buy this fighting style is from an NPC called Sabi at this specific area in the bridge. This is what the M1 looks like, pretty basic. It's kind of like the opposite of Water Kung Fu because instead of water, you're actually using fire. Anyways, moving on to the Z ability, this one is called Dragon Rush, where you just dash forward twice and you pause between each dash, so you can literally just change direction mid-pause, which is pretty cool, I guess. Then we got the X ability, which which is called Dragon Flames. This one has a 200 mastery requirement, and for this one you just fire 2 projectiles. Then we got the C ability, which is called Dragon Explosion, with a 300 mastery requirement, where you literally just explode everything around you. And this is definitely the best if you want to guarantee some damage. The good things about this fighting style is it's relatively cheap fragments wise. It only costs 1,500. It also has pretty good range and decent hitboxes for its abilities, which makes it easier to hit your target. But the worst thing about this fighting style is that it deals a lot of knockback to your enemy, which makes it kind of terrible for grinding. Probably one of the worst in the game in my opinion. And it doesn't even have the end lag cutoff that Water Kung Fu has. So this is definitely one of the worst fighting styles in the game grinding wise. For PvP, I guess you can make do, but most people care more about grinding than PvP. So overall, I wouldn't really recommend this fighting style. The next fighting style that I got here is called the Superhuman fighting style, and this is actually one of the first unique fighting styles that I'm going to talk about. And the place that you can get it is from this NPC located at this very specific part of the Snow Mountain Island in the Second Sea. And the reason I said this is unique is because you don't actually just buy it directly from the NPC. There's a bunch of requirements. You might be wondering, what are these requirements? Well, you remember every single fighting style that I talked about before this? Well, you need to get literally all of them to level 300, and only then can you buy it for a total of 3 million belly. And this definitely makes it the best fighting style in the Second Sea. But anyways, let's get into its abilities. The very first ability is the normal attack, where you kind of just punch. Then we got the Z ability, which is called Beast Owl Pounce. This one has a 150 mastery requirement, and for this one you dash straight into your enemy and just start beating the crap out of them. This is very good because you basically just lock onto your target and they can't even escape from your punches. Then we got the X ability, which is called Thunderclap, where you just deal damage to pretty much everything around you. And no, this is not like the same ground slam ability from the combat fruit. This one deals a decent amount of damage, and it also breaks instinct, which is pretty cool. Then we got the C ability, which is called Conqueror's Gun, where you dash into your enemy and send them flying far back. The best things about this ability is that it has really high combo potential and it has really good damage for a Second Sea fighting style. It also has decent knockback, which is good for PvP, but not really that crazy for grinding. It's one of the best fighting styles in the game for PvP, but when it comes to grinding, it is probably one of the worst. It's much better to just get Water Kung Fu to level 400 mastery instead of just wasting your time with this one. Moving on to the next fighting style, which is also in the Second Sea. This one is called the Death Step fighting style. And the way you get it is by first getting your Dark Step mastery to at least level 400. And then you can head over to the specific island in the Second Sea, and then you have to defeat the boss who's located here, the Awakened Ice Admiral. And once you do that, you're going to get an item called a library key, then you use it to open this door right here, which unlocks this room, and then you can talk to this NPC called Fiona the Reformed. And then boom, you can buy the fighting style for a total of 2.5 million belly as well as 5,000 fragments. Anyways, moving on to the abilities, this fighting style is pretty similar to Dark Step, it's just kind of like the upgraded version. Then we got the Z ability, which is called Rocket Kick, with a 100 mastery requirement, where you basically just slam straight into the ground like max speed. Like, this is pretty much impossible to dodge, just look at the speed on it. Then we got the X ability, which is called Wind Bullet. We basically just send out a projectile kick, which is pretty cool. Then we got the C ability, which is called Vermilion Drill, where you just basically start kicking the crap out of your enemy. Then we got the V ability, which is called Maximum Overheat, which is just a transformation ability like from the original version of this fighting style. It just increases the overall damage, but instead of 22%, this one only does 15%. And you might be thinking, wait, why is it only 15? Well, because this fighting style deals a lot more damage than the normal Dark Step fighting style, and the devs just didn't want to make it way too OP. But it does last for the same amount of time. Overall, this has pretty good combo potential, it's pretty decent for grinding, and it's also one of the best in the game for PvP. But the bad thing is that it does have a slow M1 speed, hence why it's bad for grinding. It's also hard to hit your opponents when they're really far away from you, because its projectiles aren't too crazy. Overall, I would say it's a pretty decent fighting style. Anyways, moving on to the final fighting style in the Second Sea before we head over to the third. This one is called Sharkman Karate, and before its nerf, it was definitely the best fighting style in the game for grinding. But anyways, the way you get this fighting style is actually kind of similar to how you get Death Step, but instead of getting your Dark Step fighting style to a 400 mastery, you need to get Water Kung Fu to a 400 mastery. Then you have to head over to this island right here, defeat the boss who's located behind, then you get an item called the Water Key, and then you have to walk over to this NPC right here, give it to him, and then you can buy it for a total of 2.5 million belly or 5,000 fragments. This is what the normal attack for the fighting style looks like. It used to have no end lag, but now they just added it, which makes it a pain for grinding. I mean, it's definitely not the worst, but it's just dropped from its place as the best. Anyways, let me tell you about the abilities. The first one is the Z ability with the 100 mastery requirement. We basically just dash into your enemy and just send them flying for a couple seconds. Then we got the X ability, which is called Pressure Vortex with the 200 mastery requirement. And for this one, you basically just shoot out a huge shark projectile that traps your enemy in a bubble of water for like a second. Then we got the C ability, which is called Great Sea Spear, where you just launch a big water projectile towards your enemy, draws them in, and just starts beating the crap out of them. them. Overall, it's a pretty decent fighting style because it can work with many builds, it has decently high combo potential and pretty high damage. But the bad thing is that you actually don't have any abilities with this fighting style that lets you move. This doesn't really have any. Well, unless you hit your enemy, then it kinda does. Anyways, moving on to the third C, the very first fighting style I got here is the Electric Claw fighting style. And this is basically the upgraded version of the electric fighting style from the first C. And the way you get is by obviously getting your electric fighting style to at least 400 mastery. Then you have to head over to this NPC called the previous hero. You have to talk to him and then he's gonna give you a quest to get to the mansion in under 30 seconds. And you can literally just do this by setting your spawn there, so it's an incredibly easy challenge. Once you do that, you just go back to the NPC and then you can pay him a total of 3 million belly as well as 5,000 fragments to get your hands on the Electric Claw fighting style. Anyways, this is what the normal attack for the fighting style looks like. The Z ability is called Electric Rampage with a 110 mastery requirement, where you just dash straight into your enemy and just start clawing the crap out of them. Then we got the X ability, which is called Lightning Thrust with a 220 mastery requirement. This one, you dash straight into your enemy at full speed and you basically just explode with the ball of lightning. Then we got the C ability, which is called Thunderclap and Flash, where you just dash around your enemy a lot and just slam them straight into the ground. You send them flying up, and this one has a 330 mastery requirement. Overall, the good things about this fighting style is the quest to get it is incredibly easy, but the requirements are pretty difficult. It also has really high damage and pretty good mobility. And the main downside I would say is that it's weak if you're fighting someone in the air, and it's also really difficult to get your hands on, but not as difficult as some of the other fighting styles I'm going to talk about. Moving on, the next fighting style I got here is called Dragon Talon. You also get this in the third C, and it's the upgraded version of the Dragon's Breath fighting style. So to get your hands on this, you already know you have to get your Dragon's Breath to a 400 mastery. Once you do that, you have to head over to an NPC called the Death King, and you have to keep rolling surprises from him until you get one that's called Fire Essence. Once you do that, you give it to the Uzoth NPC, and then you can buy the fighting style for a total of 3 million belly as well as 5,000 fragments. And a pretty unique thing about this fighting style is you can actually upgrade it after getting the blue belt from the dojo trainer. But then you need to get at least a 500 mastery on it. And once you do that, you have to get your hands on some Blaze Embers, and you can upgrade the first ability for 5, the second one for 7, the third one for 10, which means you need a total of 22 Blaze Embers to upgrade every ability in the fighting style. First, we got the Z ability, which is called Talon Lighter, where you dash into your enemy and it basically just slow-mo blitzes them. Like, just look at this. And you can also hold it down to increase your dash distance, which is pretty useful. Then we got the X ability, which is called Ember Annihilation, and this one actually has two different versions. If you tap it, then you basically just shoot out this huge fire projectile that you can control with your cursor, but if you hold it down, you literally become the projectile, so that makes it pretty good for movement. Then we got the C ability, which is called Infernal Vortex with a 350 master requirement, where you basically just explode everything around you. I mean, just look at this ability, it's pretty crazy. Overall, this ability has really good hitboxes, making it pretty much impossible to miss your opponent. It also has really high damage, and most of its moves work really well with the Awakened Buddha fruit. But the bad things are that it's pretty hard to obtain, and most of its abilities are actually close range. But overall, I definitely recommend getting this one. Anyways, moving on to the next fighting style, this one is called Godhuman, and this is debatably the hardest fighting style to obtain in the game. Just wait till you hear why. And the requirements for this fighting style is a 400 mastery on Superhuman, and just to remind you guys, to get Superhuman, you need a 400 mastery on the other fighting styles that I mentioned before at the start of the video. Besides the 400 mastery on Superhuman, you also need a 400 mastery on Death Step, Electric Claw, Sharkman Karate, and Dragon Talon. And once you do that, you can't even get your hands on it. You need to give the NPC 5 million belly as well as 5,000 fragments. And that's not it. You also need to give him 10 dragon scales, 20 fish tails, 10 mystic droplets, and 20 magma ore. So yeah, this fighting style is going to be a real grind. But once you get your hands on it, you might be one of the strongest players in the game. First, we got the Z ability, which is called Soaring Beast, which is similar to the Superhuman ability. You dash into your enemy and you just start beating the crap out of them, and this one also breaks instinct. And we got the X ability, which is called Heaven and Earth, and it actually has two different versions. If you tap it, then you shoot out a huge projectile, and if you hold it down, you just start dealing damage to everything around you. I mean, just look at this. Then we got the third ability, which is called Sixth Realm Gun, and this also has two different variants. If you just tap it, then you just dash into your enemy and send them flying. But if you hold it down, then you can charge it up. When you dash into your enemy, instead of sending them flying directly, you just start beating the crap out of them, and then you send them flying. And the best thing about this ability is that it just has really high damage, and its stuns are also really good. It's definitely the best for PvP in the whole game. It also has really good mobility, and it has insane combo potential, and it's really hard to miss your abilities if you're close to your opponent. And the only downside I would say to this ability is that it's just so difficult to obtain. Like, I mean, excluding all the mastery that you need to get for the fighting styles, you literally need to have 20,400,000 belly and 26,500 fragments with you to buy all the fighting styles as well as this one. So this is incredibly tedious to get, but if you do end up getting your hands on it, then you're pretty much indestructible. The next fighting style is called Sanguine Art, and the place that you get it from is the Tiki Outpost. The requirements for this are also pretty difficult. First, you need to get your hands on a Leviathan heart by literally defeating the Leviathan boss and then using the harpoon from the Beast Hunter ship to drag it all the way back to Tiki Outpost. Then you need to get your hands on 20 demonic wisps, 20 vampire fangs, and 2 dark fragments. Once you finally do that, you can talk to the NPC and pay him a total of 5 million belly as well as 5,000 fragments to get your hands on the fighting style. Anyways, moving on to the abilities themselves. This is the normal version of the ability. Then we got the Z ability, which is called Bloodbane Drain, where you just shoot a huge projectile into your enemy, deal a bunch of damage to them, and send them flying. And the cool thing about this move is that it actually heals you as well. Then we got the X ability, which is called Scarlet Tear, with a 250 master requirement, where you basically just shoot claw-like shapes towards your enemy and you just send them flying. Then we got the C ability, which is called Devourer of Worlds, which has 2 different versions. If you end up hitting your enemy with this ability, it just spawns a bunch of red balls around them and it just deals a lot of damage to them. And if you don't end up hitting anyone with this ability, then it just spawns a huge dark ball above wherever it lands and it just deals a huge amount of damage after a certain amount of time, which kind of gives your enemy time to escape. But overall, this is one of the best fighting style in the game for raids, sea events, and you can do really well if you pair it with the Angel and Ghoul race. It also has really high damage and literally all of its moves break instinct, and also has really good combo potential. But similar to the Godhuman fighting style, it's incredibly tedious to get because you literally need to defeat the Leviathan and drag its heart all the way back to Tiki Outpost. And some of its moves actually have shorter range compared to the other fighting styles. But overall, if you get your hands on this, it's a really good fighting style. That's pretty much it.